Okay, good evening, everyone. How you all doing? And here we are, sixth weekend, final run. All right, as the summer comes to a close, we're concluding. I'm sorry, I know I hate being the bearer of bad news, but this is also our final leg for the course. So what have we been doing here? 5 weeks so far in, one more week left to explore how happiness thinks. All right. Before we jump into today, it's bittersweet. We are concluding this very special course, but I think most of you have in front of you, or you could see in front of you, a little brochure, which God willing you'll also be getting in the mail, for our upcoming course, starting in just 2 months. November 1st, this course begins, right after the holidays. A very, very ambitious course and a very special course. The World of Kabbalah. I want to share with you a little video, a little promotion, all right? Shameless plug over here. And I want to tell you a little bit about it right after. So here you go.
Let us take you to a secret world, a wondrous system with interconnected pathways built along a giant highway that transforms godly energy into the spiritual voltage that powers reality. All the mysteries of our world, the dynamics of relationships, the progression of thought to speech to action, the journey of souls, the deeper meaning of all things. It is all hardwired to this system. And if you can tap into this knowledge, you can optimize the way you think, produce, and relate to others. For generations, this knowledge was a guarded privilege. And today, we're giving the key to you. Join us for a new course on Kabbalah. Learn Kabbalah's core teachings and discover why this ancient secret continues to fascinate and inspire personal growth to this day. Welcome to the world of Kabbalah.
All right, that's what we got going. The World of Kabbalah, starting November 1st, revealing how its mystical secrets relate to you. And I'll just tell you, we've always in these lessons, we dabble into Jewish spirituality, we'll dabble into Kabbalah a little bit, but to really understand this core part of Jewish teachings, what does it mean? What is spiritual reality? Why does it matter to us? What does it mean to us? How could it change our lives? That is what this course is doing, 6 unbelievable classes. So I really am excited about it. I want all of you to join, and I want to share with you and do something very special. The website, there's a link on the back of your brochure, bhchabad.org/Kabbalah. So the website is still not live. It's going to be live, God willing, tonight or tomorrow morning. I'm going to send out an email as soon as it's live, and I'm going to give you all a week. I'm going to email you all a promo code. Oh, you got, okay. Thank you so much, Stuart. Look at that. You're looking out for all of us. Okay. A promo code for 25% off. Whoever registers within the next week, you get a special promo. You join one code to help move right along to the next exciting thing. That's what our sages say. One mitzvah should always lead to the next mitzvah. So I'll help you along with that with a promo code for 1 week. God willing, the email will go out tomorrow for that. All right, so very exciting. The world of Kabbalah. Okay, all right, but today we got to do our class. So, today, after 6 weeks, we're going to be exploring, the topic tonight is the joy of the Spirit, exploring the deeper dimensions of happiness. You know, we had a very interesting premise for this course, which is that Judaism has what to teach about happiness, about mental well-being, about making sure we're living a life of positivity and joy and optimism, and that Judaism, in fact, always had those secrets. Okay. The interesting thing is that up until very recently, this premise would be quite laughable in the, how would you refer to it, psycho-academic, psycho-scientific community. Religion has anything to do with happiness? religion has anything to do with spiritual, with mental well-being, common wisdom was, best case scenario, religion doesn't get in the way. Practically, it probably hurts your well-being. Religion is heavy, adds pressure, adds expectations. It maybe even robs you of your freedoms. Like, this is what's going to be making you happy. Hello, Max. Good evening. And this is what Sigmund Freud says. Sigmund Freud says, you could see it in your books. I'll also show you a little video which will go through this a little bit. He says, religion is a neurosis which some men have to go through in their passage from childhood to maturity. All right, who else but a wonderful Jewish boy from Vienna would say such words, huh? Our very own. So, but this was the consensus. Religion is really something which is not healthy for you. It's a fad, it's a phase. Get over it. This is not going to be helping you out in much in life. And, you know, the way it was looked at within the psychological community was, you know, religion deserves a good, decent burial, but not really helpful much in life. Interestingly, that all changed. Well, I want to show you a little video on that. Yes? Yes, Joey?
I just want to say that in the recovery community, Alcoholics Anonymous figured it out 90 years ago.
Right.
And they wrote the big book. The AA.
So Carl Jung, who was really
These guys went to Carl Jung, and he was amazed. He said, how does this work?
Right. Carl Jung was really the impetus. He gave the initial inspiration. He had the original theory for AA, which was a very spiritual program. And at Carl Jung's, if I'm not mistaken, it was his 80th birthday party. He said that all of my discoveries and teachings have been discovered before me by a great Jewish rabbi whose name was Rabbi Dov Ber of Mezrich, which was the successor of the Baal Shem Tov and the teacher of the Alter Rebbe. Carl Jung said that. Okay, but in any case, you're right. But for the mainstream community, the academia community, the psychological community, this religion had nothing to do with happiness. Quite the opposite. And I want to show you a little video that's going to give us a little bit of a tour of that, because this is going to be tonight's topic. We're going to conclude the course with happiness specifically within Sugazon, specifically within the context of religion. Okay, so here's a little video. Very fascinating.
During much of the 20th century, many psychologists did not regard Judaism, or any religion, as a positive contributor to a happy life. Sigmund Freud, the father of modern psychology, described religion as a neurosis that people go through in their passage from childhood to maturity. The extent to which many psychologists discounted the role of religion in people's lives is apparent in a study done in the 1980s by Peter Cohen. Cohen interviewed a group of ordained clergy who completed psychoanalytic training in the New York area. He asked the clergy how they dealt with their religion in the context of their training, which included psychoanalytic therapy sessions several times a week for numerous years. Rabbi Dr. Zvi Hirsch-Weinrab, a trained psychologist, describes the results.
His basic finding was fascinating. They did not discuss their religion. They realized that in a psychoanalytic treatment framework, religion was not something to talk about, so they didn't talk about it. Now, it boggles the mind that a person who is so committed to his or her religion that they become clergy in their religion, to go through hundreds of hours of training in the most personal way and just simply not address their religious practices, their religious beliefs.
In subsequent years, however, when researchers conducted actual studies on religion and happiness, many of the studies found that religion was beneficial for mental health and happiness. In the book Happiness: Unlocking the Mysteries of Psychological Wealth, published in 2008, psychologists Ed Diener and Robert Biswas-Diener write, "In the vast majority of studies, religious people report higher well-being than their non-believing counterparts. Even when researchers define religiosity in various ways, such as attending a place of worship or having self-professed spiritual beliefs, studies show that religious people are, on average, mildly happier. Today, in the 21st century, the idea that studying Jewish ideas can lead us to more happiness does not sound at all bizarre, even in an academic, scientific sense. How would you explain the correlation between happiness and religion?
That's the story. So we are living in very interesting times that even within the academic world, there is a realization that simply embracing religion goes together with being a happier person, which is very interesting. It's a brand new development that happened within our lifetime. I wish I would have taken a screenshot of it and put it up here on the screen. There was a article, I believe in 2012, published in the New York Times, of a study done about this, the correlation of happiness with religious beliefs or religious practices. And the statistic is very, very clear. It goes in one direction. People who have no beliefs, consider themselves atheists or whatever, non-believers, they're on the lowest level of happiness within America, within this study. Anybody who's religious is higher. And interestingly, which religion scores the highest? Judaism. But then they have within every single religion how religious you consider yourself. And it's very clear. The more involved you feel with your religious life, the happier the numbers just simply go up. Which is very interesting. There's not a single deviation from that trajectory. More belief, religion goes hand in hand with happiness. And that is something which I want to discuss in tonight's class. And in a certain way, all right, this is a safe space, right? We're all fellow Jews here. It's maybe something which is somewhat taboo within the Jewish community. You know, religion, we do it. Why do you do it? You got to do it. You know, it's tradition. You do what you got to do, you know. You show up to the synagogue on high holidays. You know, you pay your dues. You do your thing. This is what you do. Is this where I find joy in my life? Is this joy, or maybe perhaps religion, very heavy? It's always too somber, too judgmental. You know, what image do we have of God? Is that, you know, it's a little bit of a scary topic. It's a topic that maybe even perhaps people don't want to engage in. But I want to discuss it head on, and today's topic is not just going to be what Judaism has to teach about happiness, but very focused on religion and God. I want to put religion and God straight back on the table for tonight's class. The Jewish attitude of how happiness thinks specifically within the context of being a Jew, Jewish life, and our, you know, the existence of God in our life. Yes, Carrie?
Did they show that religion causes happiness, or not that happiness causes religion?
They showed a correlation. Yeah, so the study I don't think concluded in any direction. They didn't say, I don't think the New York Times article said it was a causation. They just simply showed the facts. Religious people are happier. You know, why? That's already up for, I guess, another study. Or that's already up for interpretation, right? Everybody could, conjecturing. Okay, so what I want to do with you right now is we have this premise, which is backed up within the scientific field as well. Happiness or religion goes hand in hand with happiness. Belief systems, being religious, having a religion makes you happier. So I want to use this opportunity as a little bit of a recap. Take a look on page 199 in your books, and let's make a little bit of a discussion out of this. I want you to try to think, what is something that you learned from this course so far, the past 5 lessons, or any other idea that we maybe did not cover, where you feel, where you see that yes, religion, our belief system, gives us the path to happiness. What would be something that you would say is where you feel that you see this? You could write it down, you could share, give yourself a moment to think. A sense of community. So you're saying relationships. It's actually interesting, we did not cover that aspect, which is, we did not cover that in this course, which means, you know, we still have more to cover. The idea of relationships in Judaism, how much Judaism wants us to be, that relationships take a focal point, and how that really does play in with very good relationships. That's something different than what we learned. Yeah, very good. What else?
I think it helps in life to accept the existence of a higher power, kind of what Joey was mentioning.
But why?
Because it relieves some of the responsibility of the entire world from your shoulders.
So you're saying when you could trust that somebody's in charge, and that it's going to be a-okay.
That's right.
Okay, so that's something which we learned about in this course. The idea of not worrying about the future, because trust. Whatever happens, yes. What do you say, Joe?
I think that in the first chapter on 36, where it says the unheard cry for meaning. I mean, what we've been through as a country since this pandemic, I mean, people were screaming for some meaning, but, you know, they were petrified. And I think that believing that God is in charge takes all of that pressure off of us to try and figure it out.
This is similar to what Max was saying.
Right.
Belief in God, and you know, you don't have to worry about the whole world.
Right.
You know, I even just saw this, and nobody was discussing this. So what we know, we heard the bad news. What just happened on our west coast? A hurricane, tropical storm, whatever it was when it came in.
Yeah.
But nobody even realizes what the
And
blessing.
earthquake.
What was the blessing there?
Rain.
The drought is gone.
Drought gone, right.
The drought's gone. So we're busy freaking out. There's a drought. Don't worry, God has a plan. So,
Sometimes God answers prayers very vehemently.
right, too much rain. Right, it's like right. Okay, there's a lot of opportunity there for Jewish jokes. But it's interesting, you know. It's you never know how the blessings, you know, how God has it all planned out. Okay, what else? What would you say are some other ideas? Maybe even from what we spoke about in this course. What was an idea that you feel touched you in this way? Yes, Val.
Gratitude.
Gratitude. The idea that Judaism teaches gratitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have a happier life when you are actually just aware, cognizant, and taking it in, all the blessings we have in life. Instead of always focusing on what we don't have and the problems. Very good. Yeah, that's a very big idea. So if we have Judaism teaches us worldviews and attitudes and ways to think, and it teaches us to pray. And the more we do this, the more it directly induces happiness. All right, Leah, yes, go ahead. You got to unmute, Leah.
So something, I'm not sure if it's from this course or from other courses, but the idea that, you know, if you're keeping kosher, you're limited sometimes in what you are limited in what you're going to eat. If you observe Shabbat, you know, there are things you're not going to do that day. So in those limitations, there's liberation because it gives you the blueprint and it keeps you on a path.
Right. It gives you
So
a
some
sense of
people-
direction. Gives you
Yeah,
a
and some
sense of
people can
clarity.
see that there's too many restrictions, but on the other hand, it's really positive because it really helps you guide your life.
Right, the idea of having guidance, the idea of having meaning, this idea of having direction. Not that you're just floating and shouldering all the questions and all the. Okay, very good. Let me share with you. What was that?
I think,
What do you
know,
say?
in our society in the last, 80, 100 years, right, the fact that we're free to, we've got all these freedoms. It's a lot to decide.
A lot of choices.
A lot of choices.
Too many
Right,
choices.
I mean, I think we see a lot of kids overwhelmed by it, and adults overwhelmed by this, and, right?
You know, people say, why do people love Trader Joe's? I once read this. You want to know why? There's no choices. No choices. Ketchup, we got only one for you. Take it and move on with life, you know. Don't sit there. I have 45 different brands. You walk into Meijer, you got a whole aisle of ketchups. What do you want me to do over here? Mushki, I remember the first time I went shopping. I do all the shopping in my house. That's just how it works in our relationship. And I remember the very first time, it was after Mendel was born, that was when we officially transitioned that I do shopping for Shabbos for Meijer. That was a 4-hour trip. 3 hours just in the fruit and vegetable department. The amount of, your phone tells you how many miles you walked that day. It was unbelievable. I was walking around in circles. Okay, but in any case, too many options. All right. Or cucumbers. 5 different types of cucumbers. Okay. In any case, but someone once told that to me. You should know, it's very interesting. Someone once told me, she said, Rabbi, it could be some of you were there when she said this. Or it was a smaller class. She said, Rabbi, I believe she said, I'm jealous of you. You have such a good life. Any question you have, you know exactly what you need to do. Because you're religious, you have a Torah, you have Jewish law, and you just know how to react. And that's, you have a good life. That was interesting, because I don't, I can't say that I had that perspective of realizing that thing, but to your point. All right, and it just shows you how much more we could do this course for another 6 weeks, really, and keep on touching upon other areas, because really, happiness equals life. When are we happy? When we're having a good life. So take any area of life, teach what Judaism would say about it, and what's the result? The result is happiness. So, okay, let's recap a little bit what's been happening over here. I want to share with you a few ideas. You'll let me know if there's anything that I missed out. These are some big ideas that I feel we could really take home, and how we see that the Jewish teachings, Jewish beliefs, help us directly in having the how happiness thinks attitude. So in lesson number 1, we have the idea that Judaism provides a person with a sense of his immeasurable value. Do I matter? What's my value? Or am I a loser? So Judaism gives us a framework of understanding that no, you have a tremendous value. Judaism teaches healthy humility. Humility is a prerequisite for how happiness thinks. Judaism teaches humility that stems from living life purposefully and meaningfully. Having a life of purpose and meaning, this is what gives us a sense of belonging, a sense of value to our life. And Judaism advocates ritualized acts of kindness. This is all what we spoke about in the first class. When we are giving, that makes us happy. A happy life is not one of taking. We feel good when we give. Okay, that was lesson 1. Lesson number 2, Judaism provides a framework for turning hassles into moments of meaningful growth. There's a difficulty. Remember that video of the boys dancing on the I-80? Right? There's a difficult moment. There you go. That was a good one. Embrace it. Realize that there's an opportunity here. Every single moment has purpose. Judaism teaches mindfulness. Any moment that we are living in, throw yourself fully into it. Invest yourself in it. Don't just be trying to move your way through life and never really living in the moment. And the third idea of lesson 2 is trusting in God leads a person to be optimistic about the future. If you have trust in God, you can be optimistic. You don't let things get you down. You're always able to get yourself out of a ditch in the right, and just be happy in that sense. Lesson 3, Jewish law ritualizes verbalized gratitude, forcing a person to focus on the wonderful things in life. And by the way, I'm going to want to talk about gratitude today as well. All right, so just keep that at the forefront. We're going to be talking about that. Lesson number 4, Judaism provides a framework to be happy despite and even because of our flaws and inadequacies. Lesson 4 is a more spiritual class, dealing with our struggles, with our character defects, and how Judaism wants us to feel about that. And lesson 5, Judaism teaches us ways to avoid the enduring unhappiness that might result from a traumatic loss. So yes, there are times when the happiness is on the back burner. Now's the time of grief, of mourning, of sadness. But Judaism gives us a healthy framework, a healthy perspective to work through it in a way which is healthy, in a way we're not bottling it up and trying to just ignore it. The opposite, embrace it in a way of growth and in a healthy, productive way. So we have this idea, religion and happiness. They really do go together. All right. Today for our grand finale, as I mentioned, we're putting religion and God on the table. Not just how religion can teach us and give us tips or attitudes for being happy in life, but specifically within the very context of being a Jew, living the life of a Jew, and the happiness within there. Okay. Before I really jump in, I want to make a little bit of an introduction. I'll do it in a little bit of a roundabout way, okay? But this is going to be a little bit of an introduction. A text, ironically, again from Sigmund Freud. And Sigmund Freud says something, very interesting observation, a very interesting analysis of how the Jewish religion, how the Jewish people really advanced civilization, made human civilization into the sophisticated civilization that we are. How did the Jews do that? How did the Jews make us into sophisticated humans and not into a bunch of brute animals? He says something so interesting. So let's start with our first text for today. We'll start with text 4. And Louis, we'll start with you. Text 4 on page 200.
Among the precepts of Mosaic religion is one that has more significance than is at first obvious. It is the prohibition against making an image of God, which means the compulsion to worship an invisible God. It signified subordinating sense perception to an abstract idea. It was a triumph of spirituality over the senses. There opened then the new realm of spirituality where conceptions, memories, and deductions became of decisive importance, in contrast to the lower physical activity which concerned itself with the immediate perceptions of the sense organs. It was certainly one of the most important stages on the way to becoming human.
Very interesting. What he says like this, every religion has a tick. There's a certain impulse, which is to make God concrete. Let's make God real. So what we'll do, we'll make a statue, we'll make a symbol. But come on, God has to exist in our world. And by the way, that's exactly what happened with the Jewish people. They got the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. What happens just a few weeks later? They're making a golden calf. It's very logical why the Jews wanted to do that. Like, come on, you want us to believe in an invisible God. I can't see him, I can't smell him, can't taste him, can't feel him. Like, what do you want from me? You got to give me something to work with. No, but Judaism says no, God has to remain invisible. What is the significance of that? Sigmund Freud says something so fascinating. It taught the Jews, who then taught it to the human people, that yes, there is real reality outside of your senses. And in fact, that is perhaps real reality. And that is something worth your attention and focus. Just because your 5 senses are not able to sense it, are not able to work with it, doesn't mean this is not a part of the real reality. Get involved with things that are a little bit transcendent, with the world of ideas, with the world of the spiritual. What he says is, this is the key. It's a little bit of a digression. But he says this is why Jews are so successful. We're good mathematicians, we're good scientists, we're good philosophers, we're good lawyers. Because we're trained in the world of theory. We could discuss ideas. We could relate to the non-concrete. We could relate to the abstract. He says it all begins from this commandment. Do not make a graven image of God. It taught, do not make a graven image.
Period.
What was that?
Period.
Period. Right. It's not just of God, but he says specifically within the context of God. There should be a reality which is the most important, which is beyond the perception of your senses. And he says this taught the rest of the world as well. He says today we're such an advanced people because of this. Why am I telling this to you? There is our reality that we could perceive. There's the reality of our senses. And that is easier to relate to. It's easier to relate to. And all the experiences of within our concrete universe, the tangible universe, it's easier to relate to. The reality of the abstract, of the spiritual, of the transcendent, that's much harder to relate to. That takes a lot of work to relate to. But ultimately, there's something very real there. And that's a very big part of the Jewish belief system. Here's a little bit of an example for this. Let's talk about pleasure. There's different types of pleasure. There's the pleasure of a candy bar. All right, right? That's the pleasure. There's the pleasure of a good piece of steak. That's a little bit higher level, right? There's a good cup of wine. There's good music. Right? So little people think that what's good music? I don't know, rock and roll, right? The louder it is, the more a beat it has, the better the music is. You get older and you get a little bit more, you fine tune your senses, and what happens? No, that's music. That's noise.
You need to turn it up louder.
That's garbage. Right, and if it's not pumping, if it's not breaking your stereo, then it's you're not even. All right, it's classical music, a symphony, the nuances, the richness. Okay. Then there's the pleasure of ideas, of wisdom, of philosophy, of understanding, of working through a hard idea. You know, Socrates said about himself, he says, I didn't give up my life for my beliefs because of altruism. He says, philosophy, you know, Socrates, a person, he came from a very wealthy background. I'm not very familiar with his history. Somebody help me out over here, right? Socrates had every single opportunity, but instead he lived like a poor man. And he was eventually persecuted. He was killed for his beliefs. He said, I'm a philosopher. The reason why I do this, I could be sitting and leading a hedonistic lifestyle. You know why I'm a philosopher? Because this is the greatest pleasure. I go for the real pleasures in life. All those stuff, they're not real pleasure. So the pleasure of learning, of understanding something, of thinking through an idea, it's the highest level of pleasure. A pleasure of a relationship, the pleasure of friendship, of camaraderie. All different types of pleasures. Now, which pleasures are easier to relate to? What's easier? Candy or fine music? Or a fine idea? Which one's easier to relate to? For a human? Candy, period, right? I can tell you from scientific, we did some experiments in my home. Every single one of my children started eating candy at a younger age. Just like that, we have, how do you call it when you do, you need to have, you got to work with a certain frame, you got to have a control. It's like Mendel, we were able to keep him off of candy for like a very long time. Maybe at 3 years old. Third birthday was maybe the first time he really ate candy. But by now, it's like already, they find something on the floor, it's over. The first thing they're eating is already a Mike and Ike. Okay. It takes nothing for a little kid to relate to candy, right? Okay. Good meat, a fine cup of wine. Oh, that already takes, you got to develop a taste for it. The first time you drink a cup of wine, a good, fine, dry cup of wine, it's disgusting. What do you want to drink this? Putrid. What is vinegar? What do you give it, right? Horrible, acidity, coffee. Coffee is a developed taste. You gotta mature. Same thing with music. It's boring. It's slow. No, you gotta learn. You gotta have to take it in. You gotta develop a taste for this type of things. Easier to relate to is the more concrete. They're also the most fleeting. It's also the cheapest form of pleasure. The more advanced, the more abstract the pleasure, the more meaningful it is. The more enduring it is, the more long-lasting it is, the more real it is. So it's interesting. As we move to the world of the abstract, of the transcendent, of the spiritual, the more it starts actually meaning something. How often after we eat a good meal, we right away regret it? Right? It's just pleasure within the concrete just does not have longevity. It doesn't really last that long. Real pleasure is in the abstract. But it also takes it's a lot harder to relate to. Okay. Let's now apply that to happiness. There's the happiness of our lives within our physical lives, within our tangible lives, within our concrete lives, our day-to-day physical lives. And that's easier to relate to. It's easier for everybody to get on board with that happiness idea. Then there's the happiness of the abstract, of the spiritual, of the transcendental. And at the beginning, you hear it and you're like, this is happiness. At the beginning you hear it and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Where you can't see yourself appreciating this. But that's the real happiness. The more transcendent how happiness thinks is, the more real and enduring it is. And maybe according to Sigmund Freud, this is the secret sauce of the Jewish people. That we have this ability, that we're trained to pay attention. The triumph of the spiritual. The triumph of the spirit. What I want to talk about today is, this is the least self-help class in this course. The least relatable, if you want to say. I want to go straight to the deep end. I want it to be very raw. This is the joy of spirituality. The joy of the abstract. The joy of the transcendent. Because of that, our physical bodies, or to use Hasidic language, our animal souls, like we spoke about in lesson 4, don't relate to this type of stuff. It just doesn't talk to it. But this is where the real happiness is. This is where a real spiritual lifestyle is. This is the joy of a Jew. And there's a beautiful story I want to read here with you. Once somebody challenged the Baal Shem Tov. So the Baal Shem Tov was the founder of the Hasidic movement in the second half of the 1700s, of the 18th century. And one of the big fundamentals of the Hasidic Renaissance was a Jew has to be happy. Now really, that's old Judaism. But unfortunately, part of what happened was that Jews were starting to become very not happy. Very lacking energy. Everything was very harsh and heavy and somber and serious. And the Hasidic lifestyle was a lot of joy. And because of that, there was even a certain sense of mockery. Oh, look at, till today you have that. Like, what's the image of a Hasid? He's dancing, like as if we're high on something, What have you been smoking lately, huh? Dancing around? What do you think this is? Life is serious. We're excited. What are you doing? Dancing around? Like, so the Baal Shem Tov was challenged. What is this all of a sudden? Hasidic teachings, people have to dance. What are you doing? So the Baal Shem Tov responded to this critique with a parable. Such a beautiful parable. Let's read text 5. Jim, we're by you. Text 5, page 201.
The following parable I heard from my master, my grandfather, the Baal Shem Tov of blessed memory. There was once a musician who began to play an exceedingly beautiful and sweet melody. Those who heard it were so enthralled by the music's beauty that they could not help but erupt in euphoric dance. Those who came closer to the musician and his mesmerizing music danced with even greater ecstasy and energy. A deaf person walked by and saw a group of dancing people. Wondering what there was to be so happy about, he concluded that the dancers had all gone mad.
It's a beautiful analogy, right? There's music playing. You just got to listen in. But if you don't hear it, what do you see? What are you dancing to? So what must it be? Oh, it must be their Meshuggah. So today's class is something which is not something that we learn to appreciate in an hour and a half class. Today's topic is very real, very raw, and very spiritual. But this is the real music. This is the real beat that a Jew should be dancing to. Is this class. The joy of being a Jew, the joy of having God in our lives. What does this mean? So, let us begin our journey. This is the work that we cut out for us. We want to go to a whole new stratosphere of joy, a whole new dimension, which we're going to call the happiness that derives from transcending the senses and focusing on the abstract. This is not at all going to be the joy within our physical lives. Okay. Let us begin our journey. Is Judaism a happy experience? It's not a fair question. I've already made all these introductions. Let me show you something. I'll put it up over here. Okay, this is a very, very famous, I believe it's a French painting that depicts what? Who can guess what the title of this painting is?
Debate then?
Close. What was that? Rabbis debating the Talmud. Right? Sounds good? So that's a fair thing, right?
5 Jews, 6 opinions.
This guy does not look like he has an opinion. So it's 4 opinions here. He looks happy. He looks pretty happy. I would not call this an anti-Semitic drawing. I think it's totally fine. It's appropriate. But it's not anti-Semitic. It's very stereotypical. All right. What's stereotypical about this picture? What would you say? Okay, so everybody's got a beard. But I think that's very accurate. We all got those noses, right? Do you guys see those Jewish noses? Look at these Jewish noses, real good hooked noses. Look at that. This artist went to town with those noses.
The stiff neck and stubbornness, particularly in the man on the right.
Yeah, you see a lot of. This is an intense table over here. This is an intense debate. Everybody is very uptight. Everybody's.
The man with the cap is thinking.
He's thinking. But everybody looks a little bit upset. Now you could say they're not upset, they're not mad, they're just talking, they're debating, it's a conversation. But perhaps it's somewhat indicative of the stereotype of the religious experience. A bunch of miserable people that are just debating Talmud and don't have any real value in life and live as poor people and just sitting in a shul and just talk. and it's not a joyous experience. And I do believe that that is the experience of 21st century Jewry, 20th century Jewry. I'm saying the story of Hebrew schools in America tells this tale. Judaism is something you gotta do, but it's a schlep. It's a drudgery.
What is this box? What is?
What's this box over here?
The one who looks, no, in his hand, the one who looks handy.
This is called Schmecktabak. You know what Schmecktabak is? Who here knows what Schmecktabak is? There you go. Schmecktabak is tobacco.
Oh, it's
Tobacco.
snuff, that's what I thought.
Oh, what is it?
Snuff.
Snuff. Yeah, snuff. That's right. Yeah, yes, that's snuff.
And he looks, and he looks happy.
Yeah, it's just.
Right.
No, this was typical. You go around, you share your snuff in a synagogue. Yeah, this was part of the stereotype. Yeah, the stereotype is all here. You know, you go to a synagogue. The synagogue is not where you're going to be happy. The synagogue is not where you're going to have a good time. You go to a synagogue, it's somber, it's serious, it's very structured. And I want to break that illusion. I want to break this model. This is bad. Let's read two texts with you. Text 6a and 6b. Barbara, I want you to read both. The first one's from Psalms. King David writes this. We're on page 202.
Serve God with joy, approach him with joyful song.
There we go. King David says it himself. How do we serve God? With joy. Joyful song. Okay. Maimonides, next text.
The joy that a person takes in performing a mitzvah and in loving God who commanded it, it is itself a great divine service.
Says Maimonides, it's not enough to just serve God. That's not enough. You got to have joy. You got to feel love. He says this is a great divine service. This is something which we got to work on. If you're experiencing Judaism and you're not feeling a joy in it, you're doing it wrong. Serve God with joy. Okay, I want to show you a little video. Just a contrast. We have this picture. I want to show you 60 seconds. This is actually the night before Rosh Hashanah. What's Rosh Hashanah? You know, if there's a serious time on the Jewish calendar, high holiday season, repentance, got to man up to your sins, bang your chest, don't kill me, I want to live. You know, all these like very heavy, no? God, please forgive me. I'm horrible. I did this. I did that. This is literally the eve before Rosh Hashanah. Watch this here. This was from a 3-hour Farbringen, a 3-hour gathering the night before Rosh Hashanah, where the Rebbe spoke, there were taught a Hasidic discourse. And one of the things the Rebbe spoke about is that even, we'll be talking about it later in today's lesson, even in the high holiday season, the joy. What are they singing here? The words are very beautiful. It's the words from the high holiday and the holiday, all holiday liturgy, which we say in the Amidah. Ata v'chartanu mikol ha'amim. You have chosen us from all the nations. You have sanctified us with your mitzvahs. It's a beautiful, beautiful prayer. Thanking God for embracing us. It's an attitude. Joy is an attitude, specifically within Judaism. So let's talk about this for a moment. Maimonides says it's a great divine service. We have to work in it. Meaning service means we have to put effort into this. To feel the joy in performing mitzvahs. Not just to do it because you got to do it or your grandmother did it. It has to be real joy. So, first of all, let me ask you. Why is joy in doing a mitzvah so important? You do what you got to do. God asked you to do something. Now, how you feel about it makes a difference.
Yeah,
Why? What did you say?
you'll do it better if you're enjoying it.
So first of all, you have better, how do they call it? Greater productivity. You'll probably be doing it better. Okay, so that's like a transactional idea. Be happy, it's like that, you'll do a good job when you do it. Why does God care if we're happy? Do what you got to do. Why does Judaism care?
You'll do it again if you're happy.
Here's a story. Ready for a little story? Here's a story. There's a Jew. He owns a business. His name is Mr. Lefkowitz. All right? Mr. Lefkowitz one day gets a knock on the door of his business. Who's there? It's the IRS. He's under audit. So what happens when you get audited? The guy moves into your office for at least a full day, goes through all the files, asks all the questions. And Mr. Lefkowitz didn't do anything wrong, but it was still an uncomfortable experience. You don't want somebody coming and looking around and asking hard questions. And Mr. Lefkowitz clearly showed his disdain of this IRS auditor visit. So Mr. IRS official says, Mr. Lefkowitz, it's a great privilege to live in this great land. It's a great privilege to make good money in this land of opportunity. And the least we expect is that you should pay your taxes fairly with a smile. So Mr. Lefkowitz gets very excited. He says, that's amazing. I thought you would tell me that you wanted me to pay my taxes with money. A smile that I could. Okay, all right. Paying your taxes. Does the government care how you pay your taxes? Do it with a smile. Now, can you imagine that's a question in your form? Please rate your emotional. wouldn't be a happy scene, right? If you just took the percentage of how. That's not the point. Do what you got to do. So all of a sudden, Judaism says, no, you got to be happy. Serve God with joy. Why? So the simple answer is like this. If you're not happy, that means you don't even understand what's happening over here. That's a problem. It's unfortunate. What's the metaphor given for this? The metaphor is that the princess, the daughter of the king and queen, gets married. She gets married. How does it work? Royal weddings. You get married to the prince of the neighboring kingdom. And she's going to live there. So she's leaving her parents' house. But to take good care of her, her father fills up a chest filled with treasures, diamonds and gold from the royal treasury. Big, big, heavy chest. And tells the daughter on her wedding night she's going off with her husband to a faraway land. He says, I want to leave this with you. She takes it, and the whole way home she's kvetching. Not only I'm so tired after my wedding, now I have to carry around this whole chest with me. Like, it's a pity. You're not in touch with what's happening over here. So Judaism says, if you don't feel the joy and happiness, and if you don't feel the joy in a mitzvah, what it means is that we're a little bit not in touch. We have a false narrative of what's going on over here. We should feel the joy. So I'm using this, I want to focus specifically on this. What's the joy of the mitzvah? Well, how do we do this? How do we develop this? What would you say? Let me get some quick thoughts. I want you to choose. It's in your books on page 203. I just want you to think for a moment. Okay, let's put this up over here. God wants us to be delighted in doing the mitzvot, and that shows that we recognize the value and the goodness of the mitzvahs and the wonderful opportunities that they present to us. So what would you say? What is a mitzvah where you feel this? What is a mitzvah that talks to you, you really feel, brings you value, you feel joy in doing the mitzvah, and why? What would you say?
Is it a mitzvah to dance on Simchat Torah with
Yeah, you feel the joy there.
Yeah.
Why?
It's a connection to, a bedrock, transcendental, essentially, aspect of your whole spiritual being.
You feel that.
and you're sharing it with other people.
That's beautiful. We're all celebrating our, who we really are. That's beautiful. So dancing Simchas Torah is your mitzvah where you feel the joy. Beautiful. What else? What's-
Rabbi,
Friday Night Kiddush is it for you? Yes, Nancy.
I think in helping somebody in need.
Helping somebody in need, you feel the joy there in that mitzvah. Very good. Very, very good.
Shabbos candles.
Lighting Shabbos
Doing it
candles.
with everybody around.
Oh, that you're uniting with Jewish women. We're all bringing in the Shabbos together. So there's a lot of mitzvahs. What is that a mitzvah has joy? So I want to share it with you. Dear friends, we have about 35 minutes left. We're taking the plunge right now. All right? Text 7. King David writes in Psalms. Toby, give us a read for text 7.
My flesh and my heart yearn. God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. As for me, God's nearness is my good.
What does King David says? For me, goodness for me is God's nearness. I feel close to God, I feel good. And I want to speak about this verse specifically. What does that mean? That King David says, right? They say that King David played harp. As for me, God's nearness is my good. This is what he sees in the mitzvah. He always describes it as, I feel close to God. And that's my goodness. What does that mean? You do a mitzvah, you feel close to God? Let's unpack what this means. So let's read this next text. Text 9, Larry, on page 206. This is, if you were here a few weeks ago, we read this together, this verse. It's from Lamentations, from the Megillah of Eicha, which we read on Tisha B'Av. Beautiful verse.
The word mitzvah.
No.
9.
Text 9.
Up above. God is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will place my hope in him.
God is my portion. What is the idea of the closeness of God? Why should a mitzvah feel good? So this is the first idea. God is my portion. Which means like this. And for those of you who are joining our Tanya class, we just spoke about this in this week's class. What is our relationship with God? First of all, in general, talking about the word relationship with God. American Jews don't mind mentioning God, but the word relationship with God, that is something which we have a difficult time with. And there could be all different reasons why. We could theorize, what's the, yes.
When God created man, we are created in his image.
Yes.
So we are to be like God, which helps our relationship.
So when we are like God, it helps our relationship with him, right? But what does that mean that we have a relationship with God? What does that even mean? People, I think, are uncomfortable with that term a little bit, no?
We want to,
Emulate him?
yes.
All right, so that's a good level of relationship. That's a starting point. Want to be similar to God.
People struggle to see the comeback.
Oh, so first of all, what am I having a relationship with? There's this invisible God. Going back to Sigmund Freud's text, having a relationship with God who I can't see, I can't feel. I don't know where I'm getting things back from him. Yes.
The relationship is in giving us a purpose in what God wants for the world.
He gives us a sense of purpose. He's saying he gives us direction. He gives us purpose.
Yeah, the relationship gives us a sense of purpose.
Yeah. I recently heard this. I think it's a beautiful line. Somebody recently told this to me. In today's world, it's a very big thing. You go to therapy for our relationships. Very healthy, right? Spouses, very healthy. Go. Sometimes you need therapy. Maybe there were problems that you neglected to address. Maybe things came up. It's very important. A couple, speak it over. Have a therapist help you. Children and parents, relationships. Sometimes you got to go to therapy to help make a healthy thing. I think Jews need therapy for our relationships with God. No, wouldn't that be interesting? Don't neglect it. It's a good thing. We have to give it the time of day to discuss. So there's many different ways how do you describe the relationship with God? This verse from Lamentations is an unbelievable verse. Because what's it telling you? God is my portion. God is my lot. My soul says God is my portion, which means like this. our relationship with God is not something that we develop throughout life. We have to find and foster a relationship with God. You are born with it. It is who you are. Your soul is a part of God. That's actually the very words of this verse. Chelki Hashem. God is a part of me. We have a physical body that doesn't relate to God. It relates to a good slice of pizza and a nice car and a few other things as well. But we have a soul that, you know what its truth is? You know what its essence is? It's God. Which means a relationship is not even built over transactions. What does it have good for me? Do I like it? Real relationships is a love that actually is past anything. Now, one of the beautiful things that happens to me every single day is that I come home. I usually come home after my kids, and my little label especially comes running over to me, gives me a big hug, just turned 2 years old. Doesn't even need like a real hug with my hands. He just hugs my feet, and he walks right off. That's his thing. He says, Tati, hugs my thing, and just keeps on playing. Very quick. It's such a beautiful thing. Why is it beautiful? Because, he doesn't come, he's not waiting for something. Like, you got goodies for me. There's no transaction. It's a child senses that this is my father, this is my portion. And a father feels the same about his children. You don't think, is my dad good looking? Is he successful? Is he worth loving? Is he worth liking? Do I like him? It's not even part of the equation. This is my portion. This is health. This is a natural relationship. It's just a father and a mother loves their children. A child just loves the parents. Just comes and gives a hug. Simple as that. What is our relationship with God? Relationship with God is not something that we develop because we learn and we philosophize and we get smart, then we can start appreciating and actually bringing God into our life, whatever that means. Relationship with God for a Jew simply means this is home. And there's nothing more beautiful, there's nothing more serene. You see this in children, right? This is what label feels. Oh, this is my tata, this is my father. Everything's okay. It's just a certain comfort level. This is what King David was saying. God's closeness, this is my good. Now, we all know that health, a child cannot be healthy. A child is always going to be suffering from anguish if they're not having a good relationship with their parents. It's a fact. Sometimes it happens, children get estranged, children get upset at their parents. It's impossible that they're happy. It just can't be. Because a part of your essence, a part of who you are, is right now being squashed. Same thing with parents and children. A parent can't have rest if they don't have a proper relationship with their children. This is basic to health. We need this. And when we have it, it fills us with that fulfillment, with that goodness, with that warmth that we need. The first step is Judaism gives us happiness because God is my portion, says my soul. This is who I am. And I'll tell you, as a rabbi, it's something that I get to experience. And it's a very beautiful thing when I experience it. When you see a Jew who has no real good reason to feel good after doing a mitzvah, but they feel good. So, some of you heard this from me. I'll tell it to you. A few weeks ago, at the very beginning of the summer, Mushki and I ran out for a day to spend a day at Cedar Point, just us. So I told this to you. Some of you heard this. Mushki always had a dream to go to Cedar Point and ride all the roller coasters. Can't say that this is really my thing. Yeah, totally Mushki. She's a real teenager at heart. She hasn't been at Cedar Point in 10 years, and she's like, we're going to Cedar Point. And I'm like, oh, I don't have time. But anyway, she figured out the date when the kids are still in school, but none of us had anything. It was a Wednesday. It was like, everything lined up. It was perfect weather. She's like, don't you dare put anything on your calendar for this Wednesday. We're going to drop off the kids at school, and we are running down to Sandusky, Ohio. 2-hour drive. We spent the whole day there. It was very wonderful. But Mushki told me it was her idea. She said, but we're not on vacation. We're still on the job. So we got to bring our tefillin with us. Hey, you're going to find a Jew in Sandusky, Ohio? We're bringing our tefillin. Now, tefillin is not that heavy, but schlepping it around with you in your briefcase is, you feel it a whole day. All right, in any case, I'm wearing my tefillin on my back, and I'm like, we're not finding anybody. Lo and behold, what happens? We find a Jew right next to us in line. We're about to get on a roller coaster. He's right ahead of us. and he made a comment about my yarmulke, about how do I plan to keep my yarmulke on my head on, on a roller coaster. Sound like hold your beer. Just watch and see. Okay. So Mushki says, where are you from? You know, he comes from California, and he came with his son, who's almost bar mitzvah, to have a day off with him, to go to the roller coaster capital of the world. So Mushki was actually the one who made the pitch. He says, oh, we have tefillin here. Do you like to put on tefillin? So he says, that's not my thing, and that's not what I came here for. All right, so that's a pretty clear no. You know, we didn't come here for this. Not our thing. I'm not putting on tefillin. So I say, you know, you already schlepp all the way out to Sandusky. You're having a whole experience. I think it would make the experience like a lot cooler if it's like, and we put on tefillin. Like, you know, how wild is that? Well, just make it seem, and I'm like, 60 seconds. Let's just do it. So he's like, all right. So he was like, begrudgingly, you know, I pushed him. He didn't want to be, you know. He was being more cordial than I was. I pushed him. He didn't want to push back. So he's like, all right, we'll do it. Afterwards, he's so happy. He starts taking selfies. I need to send it to people. He says, that you just made my day. I'm so happy. I'm so excited. What just happened here? In 90 seconds, he went from, okay, let's just do this and get over with it, to all of a sudden he's all excited. How do you explain that? And I see this many times. Sometimes even a Jew who's not interested, who doesn't understand the value, never did this before, can't even begin to explain what he's doing. I'm putting on tefillin, lighting Shabbos. But when they do it, they feel the warmth. How do you explain that? So if you ask a psychologist, if you ask a sociologist, they'll give you their answers. If you ask Judaism, it's this verse. This is home. It feels good because it's right. There's nothing more right than a Jew feeling close to God. You do a mitzvah, you feel good. So number one, Judaism says religion makes you a happier person. Why? Because Judaism is essential. And whenever a human being is missing an essential in life, whether it's food, water, drink, and basic relationships, we cannot be happy. We all know this with our children. If there's a child, you know, if a little child is starting to become miserable and kvetchy, you start asking, when was the last time they ate? Are they maybe dehydrated? Do they need a nap? Just start asking the basic questions. When a Jew is feeling an inner angst, when a Jew is feeling a certain lack of inner happiness, what's the question you have to ask? Are we feeding the soul? Is what the soul needs? So I'll just tell you, on a personal level, I look at these classes of teaching Torah. I don't look at it as elective. You know, we're doing like a bonus here. You know, people who want to enrich their lives and have nothing better to do on a Wednesday night at 7:30, you know, just come out here. The way I look at it is that I am offering ear to breathe. I'm offering not candies, not steaks, but bread and water. The frustration is I'm the only one who sees it that way. But like, not everybody. Max giving me hope. For a Jew to be in touch, you see it. This is what we need. We have a body and a soul. We have to take good care of our body. We can't be happy if the soul doesn't feel at home. And when we feel at home, we can even hear our soul saying these words, God is my portion. This feels right. So we do something, we do a mitzvah, we get close to God, we study Torah. It's not just nice and interesting and recreational and traditional. This is the joy of a Jew. Maimonides says if you don't feel it, you got to work on it. We have to learn to appreciate this. Okay, but it goes even further. So we learned that we have a relationship with God. We're back to square one. Relationships with God is a very hard sell. What does that mean to have a relationship with God? This big God, infinite God. I am finite, He's infinite. He's all-knowing. I barely remember what I ate for breakfast. You know, where exactly is our relationship here? He's so big. He doesn't need anything. He's infinite. He's got whatever He wants. I'm just a little speck in this large universe. What does it mean that I have a relationship with God? And this brings us to the next idea of what does a mitzvah mean? You know, the word mitzvah is a Hebrew word. What does the word mitzvah mean? Commandment, right? It's usually translated as good deed, which is not bad. Good deed is nice, but it really means a commandment, which means there are a lot of good deeds that are not commandments. Commandment means somebody commanded it to you. That's okay, but there's another meaning to the word mitzvah, not just commandment. Okay, let's put this up over here. All right, before we read this next text. So number one, by the way, this is a quote from Psalms, how King David describes mitzvahs. They're more desirable than gold. We are naturally drawn to something that we sense is a part of us. Just like this little boy over here, right? My little label. He comes in, he gives a hug. It's such a beautiful thing because it's so simple. There's nothing happening over here. He doesn't get points for giving the hug. He's not going to lose out on anything for not giving a hug. It's just, I love being close. I just want to feel that warmth of being close. Okay. But then we have this next point. Can the finite and the infinite have a relationship? If I'm so little and he's so big, then what's going on over here? Comes the idea of mitzvahs. What's a mitzvah? It's a commandment, but let's really understand what a mitzvah is. Text 10, Elki, page 206.
The word mitzvah is related to the Aramaic word tzavta, which means connection. One who performs a mitzvah connects with God, the issuer of the commandment. This is the meaning of the Mishnaic phrase, ethics of the father's bosom. The reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah. The reward of the mitzvah is the connection. Mitzvah, tzavta. It generates with God the issue of the commandment.
A mitzvah doesn't just mean a commandment, an obligation. This is what you got to do. A mitzvah meaning technically it's a commandment. I'm asking you to do this. But if you want to understand really what the substance of a mitzvah is, this is the fabric of our relationship, a connection. We're forging a relationship. What does that mean? There's a big God. He's got big troubles, big stuff going on. Your little life, logically, is of not much relevance to him. What happens? God then says, just like we saw in the video, this was the Hasidic song, attuned to the words from our prayers on the holidays. You chose us, you brought us close, you gave us mitzvahs, you made us holy. What do? God gave us God says, I want to make you into my nation. And then God says, and I want to enter into a relationship with you. I want to tell you 613 different things that you could do for me. And this is how we're going to form a relationship. What does that mean? How do commandments form a relationship? Even on the most simple level, think about somebody who's very big. Think about a little kid. And in this school, in a big school, there's hundreds of students, and then there's the principal. And the principal is such an exalted figure, and you're so intimidated and you're so impressed by the principal, but the principal doesn't have time for you. Imagine if one day the principal comes over to you and says, I need a little girl to help me out today. Can you maybe have a bunch of jobs, a bunch of things I could use your help with? Can you help me out today? Is that a bother, or is that the most amazing thing that ever happened to you? Wow, you want me? You're bringing me into your life? I could do something for you? Of course, anything. That's on the simple level. God is saying, I want you to be a part of my life. But even deeper, this is really what every relationship is made up of. One of the most integral parts of any relationship, especially in marriage, I'm saying, where two adults come together, is that each spouse has to create a vulnerable space for the other spouse. You see this. Sometimes it's very unhealthy when two people enter into a relationship and they refuse to be vulnerable with the other. Yeah, we'll be married. Yeah, we'll share a house. We'll do stuff together. But essentially, I've got my life figured out. I don't need you. Relationships can't work that way. The whole idea is that I need your companionship. I need your support, your love. I need you to fill a gap that maybe I myself don't have. That's called creating a vulnerable space. By the way, this is the reason why, in my opinion, celebrities can't hold on to marriages. Because they get so full of themselves, and they enter into relationships, and there's no vulnerability. Yeah, we happen to be living together. But you can't there's no real connection, right? Mitzvah means connection. You're not fostering a relationship this way. You're not entering into a relationship. You just happen to be doing things together. God is saying, I actually have some needs. I actually have some things that I need you to do. Things that make me happy. Can you do them for me? That's a healthy relationship. What is a mitzvah? A mitzvah is not God saying you got to do this or else I throw you into hell. You think God really needed, like, you think that's what God's missing in life? Somebody to threaten or else he throws them into hell? God is giving us the opportunity to enter into a relationship. I want a relationship with you. How are we going to make this relationship? By giving you the things that we could do. So a mitzvah means a commandment, but more importantly, it means a connection. So what is the attitude to a mitzvah? It's not a commandment, it's me making a relationship, a connection with my God. It's not that I have to do a mitzvah, I must do it or else. It's that I get to do a mitzvah. I get to enter into this relationship. This has to be the attitude of a mitzvah. That God has given me the opportunity to be there in his life. To be meaningful to him in his life. That God draws me close. God gives me a mitzvah. God makes me holy. God sanctifies me. Okay, in lesson 3 we spoke about the idea of gratitude. Sometimes we have blessings in life and it's easy to not realize it. So what do we do before every single mitzvah? We make a blessing. What's a blessing? The simple meaning of a blessing is we're thanking God for giving us the opportunity to do a mitzvah. But I want to go deeper. Let's read the text of a blessing, of a bracha. This is a blessing. This is every single blessing of a mitzvah starts with these words. Text 12a, Joey. 12a on page 207.
Just before I read it, I just want to make one comment.
Sure. Oh, you're already using up your time here. Okay, no, go ahead.
My time, your time. Just quickly, the arrow down, the commandments is a connection. And the arrows up are blessings to God are a connection. And then we get arrows down, so we get blessings back.
It's all, it's a relationship.
12a. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to ...
There you go. So every mitzvah, we start off this way. Blowing shofar, blessed Lord our God, saying us with his commandments, commanded us to blow shofar, eat in the sukkah, light Hanukkah candles, eat matzah. Every mitzvah you'll ever do, you start it this way. Put on tefillin, very good. Put on a talis. Everything you do, you start with this way. But let's take apart one of these words. Let's look at these words. Who has sanctified us with his commandments. The Hebrew word is kiddishanu, from like the word kadosh, holy, sanctified. So God made us holy. But the word kiddishanu is also the word that we use to describe, in Hebrew, betrothal. A betrothal is kiddushin, kiddishanu, kiddushin, same word. So there's actually two ways of reading the blessing. One is, who sanctified us with his commandments. The other one is, who has betrothed us with his commandments. That's deep. Let's read this next text. Joe, you read this one as well. Text 12b on page 208.
This is the meaning of the blessing we recite before we fulfill a mitzvah. Blessed are you, who has sanctified us with his commandments. The Hebrew word
Kiddishanu.
Kiddishanu, generally referred to as sanctified us, can also be translated as betrothed us. Thus, the blessing implies that God betrothed us by giving us his mitzvah. Just as a man betroths a woman in order to unite with her in a perfect bond, as is written in Genesis 2:4. He shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Similarly, and infinitely more so, is our union with the infinite light of God when we engage in Torah and mitzvah. This is why King Solomon in Song of Songs depicts our union with God by means of a metaphor of a groom and a bride whose relationship is characterized by attachment, longing, desire, embraces, and blissness.
This is radical stuff over here. It's not a big God in heaven who's always holding the threat of punishment, heaven, hell. This is a relationship. There's a betrothal. God is creating this vulnerable space, and he's asking us to step into that space. The things we could do within this relationship. And what's a mitzvah? What's studying Torah? Unbelievable. Attachment, longing, desire, embraces, kisses. It's crazy. What does that mean? You do a mitzvah, you're hugging God. God is hugging you. What does that even mean? This is very deep stuff. But can you imagine if we could get in touch with this mindset? What would it take for us to feel this? This is transcendental happiness. We feel that God is my lot. The closeness of God is what makes me feel good. A mitzvah is me uniting with God in such an unbelievable way. I once heard an unbelievable idea. I heard this from Dov Stein. What's a hug? Why is a hug so powerful? What does a hug symbolize? So, okay, all right. But there's also a deeper symbolism there.
It's an energy going from one person
Oh.
to another.
If anybody needs to learn how to give a hug, speak to Larry Fox. He gave me the lesson. I'm a changed man ever since. Okay. This is what a hug is. You just said it. Vulnerability. You see, usually I take up the space that I exist. I take up space on earth, and I fill up all that space. So you can't stand in my space. I'm here. You're there. If you get too close in my space, you're in my space now. A hug is literally the physical symbolism of us stretching ourselves out and making space within ourselves where we are not there and bringing somebody else into that space. Saying, this is my space and I want you to come into it. That's very deep. That's what a hug is. A hug is a vulnerability. It's saying, I don't need to give you this hug, but I'm going to make this space for you. That's why a hug is so important in relationships. It's the essence of a healthy relationship. I'm making space for you in my life. You matter in my life. I need you in my life. That's very powerful. So what's a mitzvah? A mitzvah is God saying, I want to give you a hug. I want to give you a kiss. This is very spiritual. Maimonides says this is what we need to work on. A mitzvah has to mean this to us. We need to feel the joy and the love in a mitzvah. If not, we can't settle for such a Judaism. It means we're not in touch with what's really going on over here. Okay. But I want to even add another layer to this. Once we start talking about religion and mitzvahs, you know what that comes along with for a lot of people? A lot of guilt, Jewish guilt. This is where Jewish guilt comes in. God has all these expectations of me, and I don't do it. And then I got to go to synagogue every year and bang my chest for all the bad things I did, and don't kill me and give me a good year and let me live. And beg forgiveness, and I'm a horrible person, all this. The word teshuvah is a very loaded word, right? What does teshuvah mean, right? Repentance, you're bad, man up to your sins. So this is part of why religion and Judaism and God has a bit of a bad rap. This is joy, this is annoyance, this is guilt tripping over here. You know what Judaism says? You got it wrong. Teshuvah is a joyous experience. What's teshuvah? Let's read this next text. Not just forgiveness. Let's read this. Carrie, text 13. This is from the Rebbe speaking over here. Page 209. Zugesund, yes.
Even the person who has failed and behaved in a manner that is contrary to God's commandments has the ability to be joyous. When this person contemplates and clearly recognizes that in spite of his infractions, God provides the option of the tshuva return, a process that allows him to regain his favored status and even transform his past mistakes into mitzvot. Then, concurrent with the bitterness and remorse of tshuva, he will also experience tremendous joy. After all, he has returned, and his previously fractured relationship with God has been completely restored.
So we go to a synagogue, high holiday season, and teshuvah is on the table. What does teshuvah mean? Teshuvah means God is saying, I want to restore this relationship. I didn't give up on you. I want to be close with you. Even if you look into the liturgy of the high holidays, we're asking God, there's a lot of accountability. Accountability is serious. It's not a joke. Okay, so there is a certain seriousness to teshuvah. But essentially, it's a joyous experience. God is saying, I want you back. I need you back. Our sages tell us that high holiday season is when God, so to speak, imposes himself upon us. Why does every single Jew go to synagogue? High holiday. Come Yom Kippur, everybody got to go to synagogue. I don't go a whole year. No, Yom Kippur I got to go. Why is that? Want to know why? Our sages tell us that God makes himself more felt, which arouses our soul. Our soul just, we need to go to shul. So God is saying, I want you back. I'm going to schlep you back. The moment you show me that you want to reconnect, I accept you again. Let's build this relationship again. It's a very positive message. It's not one of a judgmental God saying, oh, let's look at all your sins. Let's see how we can punish you. Teshuvah essentially means return back to who you are. Come back home. So yeah, sometimes it's a little bit of a difficult experience, looking at our mistakes that we made, trying to mend those relationships. But what greater joy is there than for a child and a parent who are estranged? And it takes a lot of courage to do it, to come back and say, let's reunite. Let's mend this relationship. How much joy is there in that experience? And then the child being able to hear from their parent that I always loved you, I never gave up on you, I accept you for who you are. What greater joy is there also for two spouses who've had a rough patch, but then they work hard and they reconcile and they come back to each other. The depth of that renewed relationship is so much deeper. Even teshuvah has to be a joyous experience. Okay, let's put this up over here. Forgot to put this up before. Count the blessings. A blessing of our mitzvah is expressing gratitude for every mitzvah opportunity and acknowledging the relationship that is fostered through this mitzvah. And then we spoke about teshuvah, the return. Teshuvah repairs one's relationship with God. And therefore, what's the experience of teshuvah? Why is it a joyous experience? Let's read this next text, text 14, on page 210. Max, what about you?
There is no greater joy than that of being released from exile and captivity. This is comparable to a prince who is in captivity, in prison, covered with filth, and forced to turn a heavy millstone, who is then free to return to the house of his father, the king.
There's nothing greater than tshuva. Tshuva has to be a joyous experience. Why is it a joyous experience? Because this is the real joy. We're coming back home. We're rekindling that relationship. And that's why it says that Sukkot is an especially joyous holiday. Because we rekindled, we re-strengthened our relationship with God over the high holidays. And Sukkot is the idea of going back into God's domain. We leave our home, we go into God's home. And we are fully embraced by God. That's a sukkah. One of the few mitzvahs that we go into the mitzvah. Most mitzvahs stay outside of us. There's me and there's a mitzvah. The sukkah, we go into the mitzvah. We're surrounded by that mitzvah. We're surrounded by God's embrace. So what is the theme that we are bringing home over here? That there's not a single moment of life, there's not a single moment of within the life of a Jew that we shouldn't feel that joy. Now, as we've learned, the more abstract a pleasure is, the more abstract a joy is, the harder it is to get in touch with. This is a much harder sell than a good hamburger, right? Closeness with God, this is very spiritual. But if you want to know what the real joy of a Jew is, that Judaism teaches us, this is it. That a Jew has to feel close with God. A Jew has to feel that intimate relationship and bond with God. A distant God is not the Jewish God. The God of the Jews is a joyous experience. One more text here. Text 17c. Marion, page 213. We're skipping some texts. You'll read them on your own.
Think of how much a common lowly person would rejoice over being close to a mortal king when the king accepts the commoner's hospitality and comes to dwell with him in his home. Now, multiply that ad infinitum for our experience of closeness and dwelling with God, the King of all kings.
This is what we have to feel. God is banging on our door saying, can I come in for a visit? Can I spend dinner with you? Can I live in your heart? Can I live in your mind? I want a relationship with you. Maimonides says this is the great divine service. It takes work. We got to work. This is an attitude we have to develop. This is what it is. I want to share with you a story, then I'm going to wrap up the class and wrap up the course. In the 1960s, there was a Holocaust survivor, religious Jew. He was not Chabad. He asked to have a meeting with the Rebbe. In those days, the Rebbe was available 3 nights a week. All you had to do was call up the secretariat, say, I want to meet with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. They would give you a date and a time. And anybody, man, woman, child, Jew, non-Jew, whatever you are, you can meet with the Rebbe. He comes in, he's very upset. He tells the Rebbe that I have a few children, and I was not able to transmit to them the value of Jewish life. None of them are religious. None of them are observant. And I'm very upset about it. He says, what did I do wrong? I lived a Jewish life, religious life, Shabbos, kosher. There's nothing we didn't do. And not one kid, all of them feel a sour attitude to Judaism. So he unloads on the Rebbe, and he gives off a sigh, and he says like in an undertone, the ubiquitous Yiddish saying. He says, es ist schwer zu sein a Yid. Any of you ever heard that one before? Yeah. Es ist schwer zu sein a Yid. What does it mean?
It's hard to be a Jew.
It's hard to be a Jew. Old Yiddish saying. Was very common from all the Jews who came from Europe. Es ist schwer zu sein a Yid. It's difficult to be a Jew. So the Rebbe said, 1 second. What did you just say? Do you say that often? He's like, yeah. She's like, it's one of the things I say, Schwer zu sein a Yid. The Rebbe said, do your children ever hear you saying that? Yeah, what do I say? So the Rebbe said, what do you expect? The whole message they get is what? Judaism was hard and depressing and sad. What do you want from them? I also would leave if that's all out here. Judaism can't be that. We have to say it says gut zu sein a Yid. It's good, it's lucky, it's beautiful. There's a joy, there's a love. The only problem is that this is a deep. We have to develop a good taste for this. Just like a fine cup of wine, it takes practice. You got to hone those skills to appreciate this. This is very abstract, very spiritual, very transcendental. To find the true joy of life in our relationship with God, but this is where it's at. This is really where it's at. And Maimonides says, he writes this as part of Jewish law. A Jew has to work on developing this. A joy in doing a mitzvah. A love for the commander who gave us the mitzvahs. To appreciate the load of diamonds we're all walking around with. Dear friends, it's 9 o'clock, which means that we got to call it a day. One final thought as we go. We did 6 weeks, how happiness thinks. The premise of this course was, the world thinks that happiness is circumstantial, it happens to you, and Judaism says, no, you do happiness. Happiness doesn't do to you. You are in control of happiness, it's all about the way you think. And just think your way towards happiness. And all you got to do is learn how Judaism teaches us to think, the right attitudes, and there's not a single thing in life that we can't have the proper perspective to be at our happiest and our most joyous. But I want to leave you off with one simple, easy tip, which just perhaps turns this whole course on its head. Last little cliffhanger. One little text. One little tip. Stuart, get that book back open. Crack open that book again. Not over. We're doing an encore over here. Okay.
It's over.
I know. No. When a rabbi says it's over, you want to hear a little joke?
Picture me.
Take a quick little joke. We're already overtime, but a good joke is a good joke. There's once a dinner, and they had a rabbi talking, and this rabbi, he's like one of those people who just didn't understand how time works. Ever met such a rabbi? Once he would talk, it was like, that's it. It was like high holiday sermon. So they warned him. He said, we just need a greeting from the rabbi 5 minutes sharp. We cannot have anybody going overtime. This meeting, this dinner is on a schedule. 5 minutes and that's it. He says, 5 minutes. They said, you got to practice your speech 5 minutes. So the rabbi gets up there by this dinner and says, the organizers of this dinner begged me and asked me that my speech should be 5 minutes, not a single second more. And I, as a rabbi, am going to honor their request. But before I begin my speech, I want to share a few words. Stuart, text 18, page 214.
At all times, assume a demeanor and mannerisms as if your heart were full of joy, even if at the moment this is far from the case. Such behavior will eventually lead you to truly feel happy because behaviors and actions impact the heart.
Oh, the final tip I want to share with you is, even if you're not feeling it, just do it. Never let the unhappiness get to you. Just put on that happy face, put on that cheer, and show it to the world. And you know what? You're going to feel happier. Don't close your books yet. An amazing thing is, this is a 200-year-old text. Comes modern science, and guess what they said? The study is in. from 2008, text 19, page 215.
An ingenious series of experiments conducted a number of years ago showed that when people mimicked the facial expressions associated with happiness, they felt happier, even when they did not know they were moving the happy muscles in their face. They were asked to hold a pencil with their teeth. Doing so tends to activate the muscle we use when we smile, the zygomatic major. This muscle lifts the corner of the mouth obliquely upwards and laterally and produces a characteristic smiling expression. Try it now. You will smile.
Maybe a pencil? Okay, go.
Now take that pencil and hold it in your lips, pointing it straight out. A different set of muscles is now activated, those that are involved in frowning. These are the ones targeted by Botox treatments. Why this clever ruse? You can't tell subjects in the study that they're supposed to be feeling happy because that would have unintended consequences on the behavioral rating of interest. It turned out that the people with the pencil in their teeth, who were, unbeknownst to them, activating their zygomatic muscles, rated cartoons funnier than those who held the pencils with their lips. It appears that going through the motions can trigger the emotions. Technically stated, involuntary facial movements provide sufficient peripheral information to drive emotional experience.
That's it. So Judaism says we gotta fake it till you make it, and you will make it. Keep smiling. Think your way to happiness, and until that's kicking in, at least keep that smile up. Make sure you just have that right energy, and it's going to have the effect. You'll help your how happiness thinks. Dear friends, I want to thank you all so much for joining. This was such a joy spending the summer, these past 6 weeks with all of you. And I look forward to many more good times together. I want to wish you all Shana Tova, a wonderful, amazing year ahead. And lots of good times and lots, God willing, a lot of more beautiful Jewish learning and more good experiences together. As we say in Yiddish, Gesundheit und Fröhlichkeit, with good health and with happiness. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Shakar to all of you.